Hello and welcome to Talk Seagulls. We're back again after Brighton are back again with another win. We're joined with Danny Cashman. Danny, it's good to have you back on. It's been, a few months now, isn't it? It's been a while since we spoke. So what's changed, mate? How you been?
Not much, mate. Just obviously the last bit of last season. And then obviously we had the break and then come back this year. And so it's going well, to be fair. It's not been a bad start for us. For us and Brighton, really. But, I'm looking forward to the rest of the season.
Yeah, I know you're not a Brighton fan yourself, but I thought it'd be good to get you on. And, as you say, you're a local boy. You've been sort of in and around that Brighton development squad for such a long time. But seeing Brighton now, obviously, I know we spoke about it a little bit before, but a bit of time's passed. We're different. There's a lot of new signings now. Brighton are one of the top spenders in the Premier League, which is crazy to say out loud. New manager. Obviously, I spoke to you off air about his sort of training methods. You could see last night, particularly against Wolves, the sort of high pressing tempo, high lines, a lot of running for players. The sort of general fitness of the team is probably at an all-time high, I'd say. I've not seen sort of athletes like we've got now. Obviously, Carlos, we'll talk about Balaba's goal in a minute, but the sort of athletics of the team now is ridiculously high. How could you imagine sort of dealing with the training and that sort of style as a player?
I think it will benefit you no matter what you do, and that's what pre-season is for, really. To get that in your legs. Obviously, I've heard things about like German coaches and their pre-seasons are mentally tough and physically. But I think like you just said it, watching a Brighton side press that high and that quickly it's a good thing to see, really, because it reminds you a bit like a Liverpool team where they want the ball back straight away and then they counter really quickly.
Liverpool's a good comparison, to be fair.
I think it is, and like looking at the league table, I mean, I know it's only been a few games, but to be that high up this early on is always a good start.
I mean, how does it compare to sort of the Brighton of old that you remember in the training, the development squads that were, because so much of the team now is so young. I mentioned the likes of Carlos Baleba, even Adingra. People talk about Adingra like he's a bit of an older player. Kid's 22, right? He's pulling off sort of the first touch like he did yesterday for the third goal. He's become a bit of an established player as well. I think it might have been the second goal, third goal, I don't know. But he's quite an established player. He's won AFCON, and Baleba's now this breakout player. But I mean, they're so young now. This is the sort of age groups that you would be in a development squad in an under 23s, but they're playing at the top level straight away now. I mean, how does that compare probably to what you used to see when Brighton were first starting that transition period?
Yeah, I mean, I was there obviously at the start with Chris Hughton, so that was obviously a long time ago, and then to move through the managers, everyone's got their different philosophies, and I think now when you look at Brighton and you look at the ages, they play with like a lot of freedom, and it doesn't really seem like there's the cliche of inexperience. I think Brighton's that stepping stone where you can be whatever age you are and perform. I think they give you that sort of freedom where maybe at other clubs, bigger clubs, it might be a bit harder to do that because you've got more experienced players on more wages and things like that can always have an impact. But from an outside perspective, when you look at Brighton now, it's refreshing to see because they find gems that you don't know about, produce them, and then that's how they've built their club around, and just making a lot of profit. And like you said, being one of the biggest spenders, when you still look at how much they've spent, they're still up, and that's the massive, especially in this day and age. And you're seeing all sorts of things going on social media about clubs and spending to be that club that are still in profit and producing talent, and then losing a big player and then finding another one is pretty rare to see. I wouldn't really know another team in the Prem anyway to be able to do what they've done.
And is it the belief that they give you from sort of being a coach, I suppose, and giving it to the young players from an early age? Is it that belief more than obviously the abilities of the players are an absolute joke now? As I said, they're so athletic, it's ridiculous. They're put through their paces so early. The skill level's ridiculous as well. Even going into probably some of the 16, 15-year-olds in the squad would probably be better than I'll ever be in my lifetime. But the levels go all the way through, but it's actually the mentality probably that they give you to, there is this pathway. You can keep getting better, and you will get better if you just listen to what we say.
Yeah, I mean, there's a platform there to build on, and obviously a lot of it goes down to the player, but obviously it goes down to the coaching as well, and listening and on how to play out and how to press and where to be, and at some point you have to take accountability of the things that you do, and I feel like Brighton have players that can sort of make a go out of nothing, and also as a team, and that's quite a good balance to have, because sometimes it's not going to be an easy game every game. Brighton do dominate a lot of the possession against most teams in the Prem now. But against the likes of bigger teams that are higher up in the table throughout the season, you might need that player that can make a go out of nothing to get you 3 points or even a point.
And we'll just circle it back onto yourself, because obviously Worthing have had a decent start as well. So all away games so far. End of last season was obviously a little bit disappointing, wasn't it? In how it happened, but I mean, credit to getting there in the first place, I suppose. But I guess it would be a little bit of a bittersweet feeling that you didn't get that over the line, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think it was hard. Obviously, when we lost our manager, I think around Feb time. So to do that transition that the club haven't been through before, to then not have a permanent gaffer, it's always going to be a hard transition to adapt as players and coaches, But and then we went through a sticky patch of not really winning, and then we kind of just found our feet and nicked a lot of points. I think we won 6 or 7 out of the last 8, obviously apart from the final. So to do that and get to where we got to, and I think looking back, we probably we should have won the final. I think, but if you concede 4 goals at home, you're shooting yourself in the foot anyway. But for the players that have stayed, like myself and a few others, it's an experience that you can live and take into this season. Like you said, we've had the first 6 games were away, which I think for any team, no matter what level you're at, that is always going to be a hard task to try and get as many points. But I think we won 3, I think, drew 2 and lost 1, so that's not too bad. And then taking it back at home, where hopefully the new stand will be built and we can kind of kick on there and climb up the table.
You said about the sort of sticky patches you go through to getting out of them. What is it in teams? What is it that gets you out of them tough moments? Because even at Brighton, we've probably not actually played our best yet. I would say in the Brighton world, I wouldn't say Hertz's football quite works. I think it works, but it doesn't 100%. You can see there's a lot of teething problems. You can see there's bit of transition period, like you said. Well, what's it like going through them sort of moments where it isn't quite right? You don't really know what it is, otherwise it wouldn't be happening, would it? But then what changes? How does that then go from, you're sort of just about coasting through and then it starts to click? What is it that clicks?
I think it's that balance, like we said before, of having, players that are younger who can kind of play with freedom, do what they want, but then also having the likes of experienced players who have been around dressing rooms and have won promotions or won trophies, and like with Brighton, they've got people in there of won international stuff, won club stuff. So even with us, we've had people that have won promotions, albeit it's not been maybe at the highest level, but it doesn't matter because they've been around that situation. So having that balance of experience and younger people who can kind of play with no fear is always going to be a good balance. And like you said, it's early days. I think for everyone throughout the leagues, I don't think anyone's probably played their best football in terms of I think being the higher up, we've had international over the summer, so people come back later. You rarely get 6 weeks with with your full squad to try new things. So I think you just learn on the job really, and throughout the season, the longer people build together, the relationships get better, and that's when you can start to see. I think around November, December time is where teams are at 100%. Where they're kind of everyone knows their roles and what they're doing and how to do it, and that's where people can kind of I think at that point you can say, right, that's how they play, that's what they do, that's how they defend, and you get an idea, and it's like cemented.
It's, I'm just thinking back to that goal of Baleba yesterday. It's some hit, but it's that confidence perhaps that stems from that moments. I mean, we're talking about, as I said, the young players and these sort of moments they give you that confidence to break through. Those sort of opportunities that come up for players like Carlos yesterday, it's actually breeding new leaders as well into the squad. It's probably similar to how it is with you. You go through a bit of a tough patch, whatever. But someone like Baleba, he's probably not really been, thought of as being a starter here. He wasn't really much of a first teamer to begin with. He was a sort of fringe player that would get in and around. This season, he's come in and probably not only gone from being one of the sort of first names on the team sheet, but he's actually gone into being one of the most talented players in that team as well.
Yeah.
Is it almost breeding that leadership, that a different sort of confidence where it's almost boosting you straight away from the get go?
Yeah, but I think games do that anyway. Like cup games for people that haven't played a lot of minutes is an opportunity for you to go and show what you can do, and I think that took him his chance. He took it. I watched him against Crawley and I thought he was the best player on the pitch.
Yeah,
that day.
This is what I mean. It's like he gets the opportunity against Crawley, but then he comes against Wolves, goes in the Premier League. It's like you've gone from being a bit of a fringe player to not really being in the team. Then you're a starter, but then actually you've gone from being a starter to best player in the team straight away.
But I think there's also a good thing from the manager's point of view is that he's seen that performance, albeit it was against a League One team who I thought were really good on the day.
They were, to be fair.
He's done that, and the gaffer's given him a chance, in the Premier week later, and he's performed again. So I think that helps players, especially when they're younger. I mean, I can only talk for myself, but that would help me. I think that'd give me confidence in that the manager's believing in me to do a job. But then it's also, I think, for young players, I think people know that you've got the talent and the skill, but it's the consistency. I think everyone would talk about as a young player. Can you do it on a regular basis? And if you can, that's when you cement your place in the team, and then people from around clubs and all around the Premier League will then talk about that player, and then before you know it, come Jan, you probably have 4 or 5 teams that want to buy him again. And that's how football sort of works. I think Brighton have that good platform for players to build on.
I'm just looking. Did you see the trend the other day about Barclays, man? On social media, it was a bit of a thing saying, going back to the old Barclays days of Premier League when sort of had the long shots, you had the bit of old school Premier League stuff, right? And I was looking through it, and since then it could be a complete coincidence, right? But John Duran, I don't know if you saw his goal for Aston Villa the other day, absolute rocket. Yeah. There was one obviously Baleba last night for us. There's been a few more long shots. And I don't know if this could be a complete conspiracy theory that I'm starting up right here, right now, but I'm seeing more long shots. It's almost taken like a bit of a reignition into the game. And my question to you is it like because we didn't really see it, do we? It was almost like, you got to pass it into the back. You got to get yourself into better positions, create better opportunities. It was always about creating chances at the best XG possible. Now it's actually gone a bit backwards again. And players are just having that little bit more creative freedom. Is that something that's maybe a direction from management, or is that just a creative thing of the player to think, do you know what? I'm just have a go. Why not? What's the worst that's going to happen? Or do you get held back sometimes?
I think it's probably more from the player's point of view, because I've never really heard a manager say to me, just shoot from 25, 30 yards.
Yeah, but do you ever get told not to?
I wouldn't say not to, but I feel like you're more encouraged to make passes and kind of build into an area where you can then, either work across or you're outside the box. It's a bit more closer. That's, I think, the modern day football. But I think, if you've got the confidence to have a shot, if you don't shoot, you don't score.
Yeah.
I know it's a cliche, but, even, like you said, obviously the last week or so, there's been a lot more recently. But, I think, why not? If you're in a position where you can shoot and that's your first fault, then I think you should do it.
Well, technically speaking, players should be better than they've ever been now to be able to do something like that. Technically,
yeah,
because players are probably more athletic. Yeah, they're probably higher skill set. They've been trained from a younger age to be able to hit a shot like that.
Yeah,
more regularly than ever before.
I think maybe in terms of striking a ball a lot better and things like that. But then you also flip it and say, well, defenders should be better and
That's fair.
They should get out to the ball quicker. So there's always two ways to look at things. But I think, you know, in them situations, I think because the game's so quick these days, you've only got half a second to think. So it's like you're not really thinking about it, you're just going to do it, and you're just letting your natural instinct just take over. And I think in them situations, they were all quick shots. You know, it was like a touch, shoot. So it wasn't like touch, shoot. It was like touch. My first thought was shooting. And, you know, luckily they were all unbelievable goals. So, you know, it works off. I think just in them situations, I think you've got to be switched on up top to know if you've got the time and the space to have a shot.
I mean, a certain goal comes to mind of just things that come to mind for you, for the player. But taking it from your edge of your own box in, what was it, the 90th minute, I want to say? Pretty much the edge of your own box.
86th.
I'll give it that. 86. Okay, of course you knew it. And you go all the way through pretty much the entirety of their team, all the way to the edge of the other box. I think you passed it about twice in that time. You've ran pretty much the distance of the pitch, taking it on. It's a fantastic goal. I think you sat two of them down with a little fake shot as well. Slightly past the goalkeeper. Went viral for it as well. I saw it had a good couple million views when I had a look at it. One, what a goal. Two, what on earth were you thinking? Is that just pure creative instinct?
Well, yeah. I mean, it was 1-1, and I just thought I need to get back, and then it fell to me, and kind of just sensed everyone, including myself, we were just all knackered. I just thought I'm just going to try and run here, and I didn't think I was going to get very far. I didn't think that was going to happen, but then next thing I know, I'm kind of on the edge of their box, and kind of, it just, like I said, it's just natural instinct. It was like I always knew I was going to chop. I wasn't going to shoot. I didn't think they were going to go as far as they did, but you know, that was an unbelievable feeling. I couldn't breathe after it, and I probably won't be able to do that ever again. But you know, it was a good goal, to be fair to myself. But yeah, it's just one of them things. It happens sometimes, and if you don't try things, you never know. And I just thought I'll have a go here, and albeit Harrison helped me out. I think the timing of the passes were both
one too. There.
Were both like really good, and they weren't behind me or anything. So it kind of helped me just kind of make my mind up for me as well. So you know, they were a decent moment.
We won't get copyright for showing that, will we?
Nah.
Roll the clip.
Marsh actually decided to load up and have a shot. It came off Glenn Rea. Danny Cashman driving forward. Here's Cashman. Still Cashman. It's still Cashman. Links it over to Harrison Smith. It's Cashman again. It's still Danny Cashman. And he finds the bottom left-hand corner. And it's Boreham Worthing 2.
But no, it's an unbelievable goal. It really is. I did see it and I thought, come on, please tell me that's Danny that scored. Because I thought if there's going to be one player that's done it, it had to be you.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you say, it keeps coming back to the same sort of common denominator of confidence that goes in from the beginning. It's that creative instinct to sort of do what you can do. And my main point of it is you see so often now, it goes around, particularly on social media. I think people were talking about Grealish in a similar sort of sense, weren't they? That Pep has almost killed him, and you know, players don't take on their men enough. Whether it might be true, it might not. I'm not saying it is or not. But the main point is, if players are allowed to sort of just be a little bit creative, have a little bit of a go, as we say, the Simons touch yesterday was just an absolute. I think it's one of the best first touches I think I've ever seen live in a game before. To take out the man like he did on the turn, he's plucked it out of the air, and then he's almost created a goal, hasn't he? Really, he's laid it off to Danny, who's had a shot, and it's fell for Kadioglu's first goal. But that little moment there, I feel like we're just starting to see a few more moments where we're almost saying, look, individuals, show it. Because I feel like Brighton in the past as well have just had that, maybe a little bit naivety perhaps, but then also I feel like we're a little bit overprotective, a little bit over-restricted on how much the player is allowed to do what they can do best.
Yeah, I think football's all about moments anyway. Like, a goal is a moment, you know, a touch is a moment, and that touch was obviously unbelievable. I watched it back and it was an unbelievable touch, but that's a moment that ended up with a goal. So football's all about moments, and you know, I think I think as footballers, like, you being not taking things too literal in terms of, you know, if someone says to do something, doesn't always have to mean you have to do it, because at the end of the day you are on the pitch, and what you think is best you should do, and that's how I think anyway. You know, if there's a situation where you think you might need to have a shot from, you know, a bit further up, then do it. If you think that's the best option, then I think rather than going against your natural instinct, you should do that. And you know, like you said about the Jack Grealish sort of thing, there's a lot of things I think come into play. Obviously at Villa, he was obviously a team that kind of was always on the counter attack. So he had a lot more chances to dribble and take players on where, you know, 99% of the teams sit back against City. So he's not got that lot of room. But there's always things around it. We don't know obviously what they're saying, and even at Brighton we don't know what they're being told really. But you know, I think as younger players you tend to have that sort of freedom and cockiness to be able to show people what you can do.
No, I do get what you mean. I think it's difficult because you want to almost have a bit of mixture of both. And the funny thing is actually when football was started again this season, I thought you actually forget how boring the majority of football is. Yeah. About 60% of the games I watch are just dead. I mean, it includes the Ipswich game a few days ago. We go from a 0-0 draw. Okay, we probably should have won on the balance of the game. We had so many ridiculous amount of chances. And then we come in against the next game, it's 3-2. So many times it sort of flip-flops. But yeah, I don't know. I can't help but think that sometimes it feels like they're a little bit held back in what they can do, and maybe you want to see a little bit more creativity unleashed. I don't know. It could just be me being a fan and overthinking it a little bit, but...
Yeah, but I also think in them situations, you know, you have a league game with an Ipswich team who haven't won yet, who will probably do anything for a point against, you know, the first 3 games are really tough games. Obviously, Liverpool, City, and then obviously Brighton, you know, away. It's hard to get points away from them places. So teams like that to nick a point. But then obviously you have cup games where people kind of mix their teams about and people are, you know, haven't played with each other and do different things, or they might set up differently. So I think them situations, there's always going to be a lot more goals in terms of people are, you know, probably not familiar with what they're doing because they might not have played yet. But then in a cup game, you know, it's like someone has to win, so you've got to try and do something. There's always that factor of play in them games.
Do you think Brighton can win the Carabao Cup?
So I was thinking this actually. To be fair, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea for them to try and, you know, set one of their main focuses to do that. I mean, obviously I know they're going to want to try and get back into Europe, finish as high as possible. But I think why not have a go at, you know, in the cup game? They're in the last 16 now, so. You know, if they get some good draws, you know, I don't see why. I think most teams would fear Brighton these days anyway. I think they've got that aura about them, and I think they believe that in themselves as well. They go onto the pitch thinking they can beat most teams these days. Where, you know, back when I was probably there, it was more we're probably going to lose rather than win. And, it was more like that. So they've got that aura about them now, which I do think they can definitely go on and win something.
I think it's got to be in the plan. Obviously I don't know the plan. If I did, I'd be a genius. But I mean, it's got to be in the idea to think it can't be unreasonable to suggest that Brighton have to go for silverware at some point, because how many times has it come back round from Chelsea fans, from United fans, from the sort of big 6 fans that banter us back down, say, yeah, you know, 1-0. And it's like, fair enough, but we don't expect to. But now actually, you look at the squad, you look at the amount of money spent, you look at sort of how good we've been with developing and selling and recruiting young players. At some point you think, okay, what's in it for us? You know, it's all well and good making 200 million. It's all well and good spending 200 million. But then at what point does that start showing on the pitch? And actually, when you look at the squad depth in comparison to, say, City, for example, obviously City are absolutely light years ahead, or at least for now until their sort of hearing comes out, but we won't talk about that. But they're light years ahead of everybody else. And their squad is absolutely ridiculous. But at the same time, they've got the new Champions League format to balance. They've got the FA Cup to balance. They want to win the Premier League, which arguably is probably it's one of its strongest in recent years. I think there's a lot of good teams in there now, including Brighton. But then you've got your sort of traditional big 6, Newcastle, Villas as well, also look quite handy. So I think actually from the traditional big 6, you've now got a traditional sort of big 8, 9, 10 that have all got a very good, reasonable chance to get into the Champions League. So of all of them teams now, actually, when you think about it, their priorities aren't on the Carabao Cup. And as silly as it probably sounds to, if you are a big Chelsea fan or something listening to this, they're going to say, oh, again, excited about winning the Carabao Cup. We won the Champions League 2 years ago. Fair enough. But at the same time, you think, actually, you got to start somewhere. And why not go for where potentially could be the weaker opportunity?
I think with Brighton, they haven't, because of how well they do and how well they play, they've never really got that on their back in terms of, you look at United, or for an example, if they don't win something, it's like the world's come to an end and everyone should be sacked and the players should be sold. Where if Brighton don't win anything, it's not really, you don't really see it as much. So I think they don't have that pressure, which is also a good thing, because that gives them that freedom to go and try things in games. And I think, obviously, the more they play them cup games and the less teams are in there, they're probably going to be under less pressure even more, because they're probably not the favourites to go in. If you have that, like you said, if the big six are still in there and they're one of them, they're probably the odds are probably still in favour of that big six. So that, I think all the way until the final, if they get there, they're probably going to be not under that much pressure apart from themselves, and that's quite a good place to be sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's also sort of the general mentality of Brighton now, isn't it? We don't really care about anybody else. We sort of just associate to being the good ones now, and I think that's where it is. And I think even as an outsider, I know you're not a Brighton fan yourself, but you probably would look at Brighton and think, as you said, they've got that aura about them. They are a bit more feared, and I think you saw that yesterday. And even Ipswich, actually, I'll include that, because their fans, I spoke to a few Ipswich fans before the game, and they were dreading it. They thought, oh God, yeah, anything from this would be a dream. I thought, that's not what we used to say when we used to go to pretty much any away day. The fact that that's now what away fans come to Brighton and think, oh, just anything will do. If we get a point, it's a dream. I'm thinking, are we like the new Man City? You know what I mean? That was not a conversation before. So, yeah, I guess it is that new aura, that new mentality of thinking, right, let's back ourselves and go for it. Do you think a League Cup would make a big difference to Brighton's trajectory?
I think it would help. I don't really think Brighton need anything in order to persuade people to come to the club. I think that shows within what's happened the last 5 years, really. What they've done, who they've sold on. Players, I think, will automatically look at that and think, that's what I want to be a part of that. I think, obviously, being a team that can go on a cup run and do win the league will always help, because, at the end of the day, players do obviously want to fight for trophies. And, I feel like it is coming, and there will be a point soon where it will be close, because they're on the right road to it, and it's just trusting that process of that timing, and that's a massive thing in football. Timing is massive. So I think it's the club's it's in a good place. It's going in the right way. It's never, even if it feels like they're taking one step back because they might lose someone like the manager from last year. I thought, where do they go from here? And and you look at them now, and it's always. They always keep going forward, which is always a good thing to see.
Agree. Finally, just from you on Brighton, where do you see the sort of imaginary limit being, if there is one? Is there a sense of realism in say, shut up, Ryan, stop thinking about winning the league? Fair enough, right? But then you think, actually, just keep going. Who can say where Brighton would finish? Really, one day. Let's say in the next 5-10 years. Where could Brighton get to?
I think. I don't think anyone's going to ever beat City, in my opinion. I think until whatever happens with that, and after Pep goes or whatnot, and the players get older, I don't think anyone's going to beat them.
Totally agree.
And Arsenal are probably similar in terms of they got a lot of young players and they're on the right way. But in terms of top four, I don't see why. You look at Villa. You look at that as an example of why not, and I don't see why Brighton can't be like that. I don't see him win the league, but.
I'm only joking. By the way.
I can see him getting top four eventually in the next 5-10 years if they do what they've been doing. And I think over that sort of time the club will get bigger, the fan base will get bigger, and they'll probably end up attracting bigger players as well, maybe on bigger wages, which will probably happen over time. Where they'll end up trying to probably catch the bigger teams. And once that happens, I think the club will be established as a big team.
And final one. This year, obviously, it's been it's a different season. You're a Chelsea fan, aren't you?
Yeah. Let's not talk about that.
But of everything considered in Chelsea's world, in this sort of, I would call it the imaginary league that is these 5 sort of teams in and around that under top 4. Where do you see the sort of end of this season being? Maybe a January prediction and an end of the season prediction
For Brighton,
for everyone. Who do you reckon is going to be the best of the lot? Newcastle, Villa, Chelsea, us. Probably I'll put in that. Man United as well. Maybe you'd throw in there.
It's a hard one. Like you said earlier, I think that the league this year is very hard. You look how much Villa have spent and how well they've doing it to come back from 2-0 against Everton is obviously a good thing as well.
Tough one, eh?
Yeah, it is a tough one. I think in terms of experience, I'd probably edge towards. I want to say Villa, and I'm a Chelsea fan, but I feel like we're a bit too immature, Chelsea, sometimes, so that can play a part.
We
in
agree, don't worry. You're in a great place to say that.
But I don't see them being far off it. I just think if Brighton keep players fit and they carry on doing what they're doing, I think they will be up there. I think they could probably be better than Newcastle. But I think Villa, in terms of what they've done and who they've spent their money on, and their manager as well has got that experience as well, kind of cup competitions. I don't think he would accept falling off too much. Where you know, obviously Brighton's manager is obviously new to the league and still young, which I'm not using as an excuse, but I think sometimes maybe
there's naivety, right?
Yeah,
I think it's obvious. I think even us, the Brighton fans, I think, as I said to you, I don't think we're there yet. By any means, I don't think we're even 50% of the way. Yeah, there. I think we're still in and around that open. It feels like the start of something new. Is what I'd probably call it. You can tell it's not there. It's new, but we're winning games, and that's all that really matters.
And I think as long as you keep doing that, then I think you're in for a shot for anything. But I think if I was to pick out of that, then 5 teams really, I'd probably edge towards Villa to kind of finish outside that 4 really.
Yeah, no, I think I probably would agree with you at the moment. To be fair, I don't think we're sold, but it's a pleasure to have you on, Danny. I would try and give you a handshake, but I said I'll probably knock them over.
That's right.
We didn't get to drink them tonight, but it is what it is. Danny, top man. Let them know where they can find you. Look into the camera. What's happening with Danny Cashman?
Nothing really. Just living my life in the now and kind of just seeing where it takes me, and whatever the future holds, it holds.
Yeah. Maybe see you at a big club soon.
Who knows?
Thank you very much for joining us. Make sure you stream on Apple, Spotify. Actually, I don't think we're on Apple yet. I don't think I'm approved there. Spotify and YouTube 100%. Leave a comment down below as well. We'll see you next time. And goodbye. Thank you.